Alright, so for this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a Velociraptor fully rigged and modeled in Blender. I'm going to assume that you already know the basics of the program and that you are familiar with most of basic modeling, but again I'll go over in detail how to actually rig it, etc. So here we go. So open up Blender and then you're going to go ahead and switch first to perspective ortho view. And then we're going to make a second window here. And for the first one, put the view from the left or right, doesn't really matter. Second one, view, actually I'll just keep that in 3D view. The first thing you want to do is make a image to use as a guide. So I just made a quick sketch, took a picture of it, and I'm going to go ahead and insert it into the screen here. To do that, you go to the pool, the tab over here off to the right, out, and that's what we have here. And then scroll down to you see background images, check it so it turns it on, then hit add image, and then hit open, and then go to wherever it is in your computer that you have that image. I believe, let's see, that it would be image 350 for me. Did not name that one yet. So then hit open image, and you can see, oh, looks like it's a little, for some reason it's not in the right direction I want it in, so I'm going to go to, see if I can do this here in Blender. No, I can't. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Alright, so I had to rotate the image so that it fits, so that it was the right side up, it was vertical instead of horizontal. So I just drew this based on an image I found on the internet. It's pretty simple, nothing too fancy, and I like to, for modeling purposes, I don't actually usually start out with just basic vertices. I start out with the cube, and I can show you how we will do that pretty simply. So move the cube into the center of the starting point. Usually I'll have it be right about the torso of the character. And then we're going to go to edit mode. Alright, so hit the W key and you'll see a menu, and then hit subdivide. And this makes it so that we can get rid of half of this cube, because we're going to be mirroring our model as we edit it. Switch to wireframe, hit B, and grab the left half of the cube, and then hit X, which is a quick delete button. Alright, now select the cube again by hitting A, and then in our panel up here, click the wrench, which is our modifier menu, hit add modifier, and go down to where it says mirror. You'll see it's kind of grayed off there. To make that so you can actually see it in the editing mode, click that button right there. And now everything that we do on one part is also going to be mirrored on the other side. So, alright, so we can start modeling now. For the first thing I'm going to do, select the whole thing, and then just hit S and Y, and this will kind of scale it so that it's smaller. Alright. Editing's pretty basic. Really nothing too complex about it. You just gotta follow your guide there. I'm not going to do a top view. I'm just going to adjust that later because this is just a kind of basic model here. I'm not trying to get too detailed for this tutorial, but you can kind of see what I'm doing as I'm doing it, so it'll kind of help you out. One thing I can recommend though is that you turn on proportional editing, which will allow you to sort of, when you select a vertex, it'll kind of pull other vertices around with it. So if I go like that, you can see it's not just moving the one vertex, it's moving kind of all of them. And that'll help when you're modeling kind of blend it a little better as you're modeling. Just going to kind of taper the ends here a little bit. Alright, so you can see we have like a little torso thing going on here. The whole thing, I'm going to just make it a little thinner. Alright, once you have a basic block like this for the torso, it's really just straightforward from this. Select the two, hit shift, and select the whole front. So you click that, hit shift, select the next one, and then we'll go over to this screen, and then hit E for extrude. And you can see how now it's starting to like really kind of come together a little more. Hit scale and Z, and it's just going to kind of taper that a little more. And then hit RX, which will rotate this by the X factor. The X factor. I hate that show. Alright, and then hit extrude again. And then pull it up. And we're kind of making the neck here, so keep rotating. You want the line to slice exactly perpendicular through the neck. So you don't want to end up with the vertical lines just stacking like that. That's not going to bend right when we animate it. Hit the scale button, scale it smaller. We can kind of mess around with this until it kind of, there we go, like that. Hit extrude again, and just pull it up. Just keep aligning it. It's really all it's about. It's just aligning the image to the, aligning the mesh to the image as best as you can. Extrude again. Hit rotate X. Alright, for this now, I don't like how it's messing up my neck, so I'm going to undo proportional editing here. Hit disable, then hit rotate. And as you can see, it doesn't change the neck that we've already kind of set in stone. Hit scale Z, make that a little taller. Alright, I need to add another ring in here, so hit Control R, and you can see it's going to actually insert vertices anywhere within that line. It's just a loop tool. And then what I'm going to do is, I want the neck, I want the back of the head to be nice and bulging out, sort of. Turn on proportional editing again. And then just pull that up a little more. And then for this, pull that down a little bit. You know what, go ahead and turn proportional editing off again. Right about there. Alright. Go back to face select mode. Shift select the whole face. And extrude again. Hit rotate X. Move that down. And make sure I think, yeah, face needs to be a little smaller. And I can go back in and edit all this again too, so I'm not too worried about the neck's a little too wide. But again, I can edit that again later too. So hit extrude, and we're just going to keep following along the lines of the face. Scale Z, just tapering and extruding, tapering and extruding. That's all this is. And just to give you a preview of what it's going to kind of look like when we simplify it, or excuse me, when we subdivide it, kind of smooth it out, you can see kind of what it's going to look like there. So even though it looks kind of rough right now, we will add the modifier and go ahead and kind of sculpt a little more from there. But go ahead and get rid of that. To get rid of a modifier, you just hit the X next to the modifier. Remember, we're using two. We're using the mirror and the subsurf, so hit X for subsurf, because we don't want that right now. And then I don't like how the neck's so bulgy, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. Turn on proportional editing, and then you can just sort of one by one pull these in a little more. Just do it. Doesn't need to be too much. Let's look. Actually, that looks pretty good. Actually, well, they are kind of thin, so I'd say right about there is good. I didn't even know about proportional editing for like the first year of me using Blender, and now that I've sort of gotten used to it, it's really kind of a lifesaver. It saves so much time. Instead of having to go in and actually adjust every single vertex, I can just turn on proportional editing, and it does most of the work for me. So, and I'll leave that about there. Now, when you start moving around in 3D, it'll get rid of your background image, but just go to View, and then we'll go back to, I think it was the left view, and it'll pull it back up whenever we select one of the preset angles. So, alright, so let's finish off the back of the raptor. Same thing that we did for the front. Shift select. It's a little easier for this one. Extrude, scale, rotate, scale, Z, extrude, rotate, and oops, scale. Extrude, scale, kind of have that same problem again going on, but that's fine. I didn't really finish the tail in the image. It's pretty straightforward to make a tail, so in the drawing, excuse me. Scale Z, extrude. That's about the length of the tail right there, so extrude, and then just scale it down until it's really small, and that's pretty much good for that. Proportional editing is on, so I'm going to go ahead and fix the width here. It's just too wide. Alright, so the body of the raptor is done. This is pretty much what it's going to look like. So I'm good with that. Alright, so let's go ahead and model the legs. For this, I'm going to turn off proportional editing, and we're going to make a big square big hole basically for the legs to pop out of, basically. So hit Control R, because I want to, excuse me, Control R right there. And we want the legs to start about there. Check that out. Yep. And then we can just take each vertex that we want the hole to be made out of and just adjust it. So I'm going to make the opening right about there. So alright, so we're going to go ahead and select these two faces. These two faces here are going to be where the legs are. Actually, you know what? Let me add another ring right there. It's just a little too wide. Right about there. So now we're going to make the leg pop out of these two faces. So hit X, and then make sure you hit faces. Alright, so you can see we have just a gaping hole in the side of the raptor that the legs are going to come out of. And I want the legs to have some more detail than that, so hit Control R again and add another side loop right there. And then move that vertex over just a tad. Right about there. Alright. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's an odd number, so I'm going to go ahead and Control R down there. I like to have even numbers because it looks more symmetrical. Alright, so go ahead and select the hole, loop around the hole, and then while we're at it, we'll go ahead and adjust the width of this raptor because it is a little kind of funky. Hit rotate Y, and that's going to flatten those out, and then move them in just a little more to about there. That way when the legs come out, they don't really take up too much space. Alright, so here's the fun part. Hit extrude, and you can see the legs are starting to actually come out. And hit rotate, which is RY, bend down, and then pull down a little bit. And you can see the legs starting to come through. Before we continue though, I'm going to adjust the shape of it. It's a little too boxy for me. I'm going to round out those square edges. And what we're going to do is just select the top 4 edges, and then watch over here on the screen, extrude out and down. Hit X to control it. Hit scale Z to make it a little flatter, and then lastly rotate Y. And you can see we're just kind of pulling it down over. Alright. So what we can do now is just select this and shift select that, these two vertices, and hit W and merge, and I usually just put at center and close that hole there, and then do the same thing for this, shift select, and then hit W, merge at center, and we now have a closed hole for the leg. And just move that out a little bit more. Alright, so they're looking pretty good. Pretty good. I'm gonna flatten the whole leg though, real quick. Make it closer to his body, I guess you could say. Alright, so shift select the whole again, and then we're gonna scale it a little bit. Sorry. Scale it along the Y, so hit SY, pull it down a little more, and now we're just going to start extruding again. Hit scale Y, rotate Y, scale X, pull it in, adjust. It's not following it exactly, but we can adjust all that later. The image itself is not exact, so it doesn't really matter as well. As long as you're closely following it, it'll look great. Hit extrude, rotate, scale X, a little more, and then extrude again, rotate, scale Y, extrude, scale Y, extrude, and just keep following this whole process. I'm not going to keep commenting every time I extrude. Hit scale X, SX to make the feet wider, because they're going to be like, you want to kind of make them more dominant at the bottom. So do that. Oops, rotate X. Hit Control R to add loops to the leg if you need to. I think I'm going to add one actually right here. It's only letting me do it on the other side. So about there. And then add another one in the back. This will help us make the toes. Alright, so one thing we're going to do real quick is fix the back of these feet. They need to be flat in the back. So hit this button, shift, 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 pull down, just like that. Alright, so we have the toes kind of coming out here. You can see where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this one's going to be 5, so we will work with that. Alright, so for this, I'm going to go hit shift between the top vertex and the bottom vertex in the hole in the foot and hit F to fill. That's going to make a line. We're then going to make the toes kind of jut out of this part of the foot by edge looping that, and extruding. So shift select the whole left edge loop, and then down here we'll make sure it sizes up well, and hit extrude, hit scale Z, make it a little bigger. Oh, way too big. Scale Z a little bit. Extrude again. And then extrude one more time. And this time, scale. Pull up. Now we're going to adjust these vertices real quick before I make the toenail. And then for the toenail, it's going to come out of here. So just hit extrude, scale a little bit, and then extrude one more time to about there. And then hit W, merge at center. That's a pretty decent looking toe. Remember, this is low poly right now, but when we add details later, it'll start looking a little more realistic. Hit Control R, add one edge loop to the toe, right about in the middle, and then pull it out just a little bit. Actually, we don't want the whole thing, we want just that. Now this toe is going to be in the way of the other one, so I'm going to just go into our wireframe mode by hitting Z and hit C for the circle button. You can use this roller to adjust what you're going to select, and then right click to get out of it. I'm just going to scoot the toe over a little more. Actually, I'm just going to rotate it on the Z axis. Oops. Rotate Z. And you know what? I think it's a little small. So just hit the scale button and you can actually just make that bigger by doing that. There we go. That looks a lot better actually. Alright, so hit Z again over here. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other toe. Same exact thing. That side claw is going to be another story though. I think I'm going to start it out over here, but we'll see. So extrude. I'm sorry, hit Y. And let's adjust this box a little bit. And then continue on with the toe. Hit Y. And then hit E again. Y. Scale. And just gonna adjust this real quick. And then hit extrude on the Y-axis again. Pull down. scale, extrude one more time, and then hit W, merge at center. It's curving to the left, I don't want that. And then go ahead and hit C, and just select. Select the whole toe pretty much. Oh, that one's in there, deep. Got it. Alright, move it over. And then rotate on the Z-axis ever so much. And then also scale this one a little bit more. I think this toe might be bigger anyway, don't really know for sure, but well. Alright, so adjust the foot a little bit, make your fine-tune details, vertex by vertex. And the foot is pretty much done. If we go into object mode here and hit smooth, you can see what the raptor looks like now. It's pretty good, pretty detailed. It's pretty much basic low poly modeled raptor. So gonna finish up the arms and the toe claw here, and then for the next tutorial, part 2 is going to be on UV unwrapping and rigging, and then lastly would be part 3 will be on animating, basic animation of the character, and I'll also save these files for you guys to download in case you want to use the models as well. So I'll go back to in the edit mode, and we're going to finish up the toe now. I don't want to see it smoothed, so I'm going to go back to flat here. Or select the whole, hit A, select the whole thing, then hit flat. Alright. And let's just make that slashing toe real quick. I think I'm going to start it right here, actually. So, face select mode, hit X, faces, adjust it so we can set it up for coming out of the foot at pretty much a flat angle. Alright. I'm also going to make the foot a little bit smoother here. I wasn't too happy with that to begin with. Right. Now, select this little box we made. You can see it's a hole, and then hit extrude. Scale X, smaller, and then scale the whole thing bigger. This thing's way too lopsided right now, so going to have to fix that. So let's go back into our, let's just select each edge at a time, pull it down. I'm actually going to view from the front here so I can get a good view from the back. Now it looks square, but I'm not so sure that's going to work. Alright, pretty much a lot more even now. So hit scale, make it a little bigger. And then go back to our right view. Oops. Left. Alright, and then this is going to be a very simple claw. I'm not too worried about detail in it right now. Scale X, and then extrude. Scale the whole thing again. And then scale by X. It does take a lot of time to do this, but when you take your time, things will look really nice. So extrude, one more time. Scale, much bigger now. Scale by X. Gonna make a nice flat claw popping out of there. Extrude again. Scale X, taper it even more. Extrude. Tight. Extrude. Merge. Center. And then bam. And they are rudimentary, but we can adjust those major later. Alright, so go back into object mode. Hit smooth. And they aren't too bad looking, to be honest. Alright, now we are going to do the arms.